Story 1. At a high school near me 20 years ago, the senior class decided to have a food fight at lunch on the last day of classes one year. Turned into a riot, with the school locked down for the whole afternoon, kids frantic on cell phones, even then, with their parents because they had no clue why this was happening, and the state police and about 20 other local law enforcement agencies deployed to the school. The school expelled 12 of the graduating seniors. Very difficult to do for a public school, but not impossible, and barred about the same amount of others from taking part in graduation. Story 2. I was in the theater department back in high school. One day, at the beginning of our acting class, the teacher came in and told us all to sit down. This one kid sat in the middle of the front row, and as he took his seat, his glass pipe fell out of his pocket and clattered to the floor. Everyone is silent for a moment. Then the teacher goes, "All right, I'm gonna go out in the hallway for 30 seconds, then I'm gonna come back in and we'll try this again." Walked out, walked back in 30 seconds later like he said, saw that the pipe was no longer in evidence, and class proceeded like normal, or as close to normal as theater classes ever get. Story 3. Walked out of English class to talk to another kid in the hall. The teacher was real lax, so she didn't care he walked out to talk to this guy. Fight breaks out in the hall. Teacher runs out. Other teachers come to help break up the fight. One teacher asked the kid that walked out of class why they were fighting, and he said, "He stole my weed." Kid who left class was selling, and the kid in the hall tried to walk off without paying. Any other BS excuse would have just gotten him suspended. Story 4. Happened in kindergarten. There was a kid named Dexter who had severe anger issues. Every day, a small group of kids would get certain jobs to do around the classroom, such as line leader, table cleaner, etc. Dexter got the table cleaner position, and he was absolutely livid, since he wanted to be line leader. What started off as a screaming fit escalated into him throwing scissors around the class, biting the teacher's hand, shattering a window with his flying scissors, breaking the tank that housed the class gerbils, and just trashing the entire classroom. The rest of the students had to evacuate the class while the teacher and principal attempted to restrain him. Security had to get involved. Never saw him again after that day. Story 5. Guy grew up doing Muay Thai, boxing, and wrestling. Forgot where he was during a wrestling match and threw a spinning back fist that knocked his opponent clean out. He was completely mortified once he realized what he did. Straight A student, star athlete, and genuinely good guy. The class president even addressed it and organized protests and walkouts until he was reinstated. Even the guy that got knocked out and his parents forgave him and supported us. He did get reinstated but wasn't allowed to wrestle or box anymore. Not sure what the coaches pulled to allow him to play football. He eventually quit football his senior year and was never really the same. Story 6. He made a bomb threat online. Most of the school skipped out the day he did because they didn't want to be blown up. I was one of the poor souls with no social media, so I came into school not knowing there was a freaking bomb threat. I also had a mom who was unfazed and just told me, "You'll be fine, go to class," when I called her. I didn't learn until the next day that he had been apprehended and expelled. What scared me was I knew him for years, and he never seemed like the kind of person to go that far. He was a class clown, but I never thought he would take that as even a joke. Apparently, he did have a bomb, but it thankfully never made it to the school grounds. However, I would like to say that while my mom made a mistake, that doesn't make her a bad parent. We had a really good relationship, and I love her. She regrets the fact that she left me scared with little to no information, but she knew I would be fine. It was me who didn't know at the time. Story 7. Middle school. He was really into Assassin's Creed. Video game and main character is an assassin. He also seemed like a slightly depressed, edgy kid. I became friends with him during his last 2 to 3 weeks. He told me he wanted to make a cool stabby blade thing that shoots out of his sleeve like in the video game. I told him that would be cool, but I never was dumb enough to do it myself. He actually made it and brought it to school. We spent a couple of days of recess and lunch running around, and I watched him terrorize some of the kids, including myself. I never thought he'd harm anyone, though. Someone must have told him. School supervisor guy came in, asked for him and his backpack, and he never came back. I think I saw him a few years later, and he thought I was the one that told on him. I tried denying it, but didn't want to risk getting into an argument. If you're wondering how it worked, I think he had some knife in a styrofoam slip that he taped on his arm. I think it either would somehow slip out into his palm when activated, or he'd manually push it out. He wanted to make it more intricate, but he got caught before he could. Story 8. He just kept his pants. There was nothing wrong with him. He just kept doing it. Same place, same time, every day. Right after recess when we lined up to go inside, he just let loose. The fattest and wettest fart slash shit you'd ever heard. And it would echo through the silent hallway for literally everyone in the grade to hear. At first, we thought it was just embarrassing for him, but by the time week 2 came around, we were all convinced he was doing it intentionally. I have no explanation because he was kicked out after like 3 months of consistently doing it. I nearly forgot. He would announce to everyone that he himself by saying, and I quote, "Whoops, I myself." Story 9. Him and his cousin beat up the deputy principal and tried to kill him with a spade. At school. No charges ended up being laid. Later went on to kill a tourist during the 2000 New Year's and dump his body in the harbor. Edit. Brothers, not cousins. Memory is a little hazy after 23 years. I personally didn't know them, but knew enough to stay the f away from them. They were known for being trouble kids. Our art teacher stopped the attack. He's a hero in my opinion. Well done, sleuths, for finding the articles. Story 10. He started a fire in some backpacks. This was in elementary school, like 91, 92-ish, and we were in like 2nd grade. After that, no one was allowed to go into the hall unattended. Backpacks were in a weird corridor in the hallway outside the pod of classrooms. Another one was the only male cheerleader beat someone to a pulp for making fun of him for being a cheerleader. The fight was huge, interrupted all the classes, and hundreds of students watched this cheerleader in uniform just pummel this other guy. They ended up outside the school in the middle of the street. Several teachers had to step in and stop the fight. I believe the cheerleader would have killed the kid if someone didn't intervene. Story 11. This is one of my favorite stories. Setting: high school in a rural area many years ago. We were seniors. I'm in welding class one day, and I overheard a couple kids talking at one of the welding stations. Booths with concrete on 3 sides, open top, and a curtain behind you. I hear them talking about welding an object to the metal welding table. Of course, I'm curious, so I peek around the corner and see they are both looking at a spray bottle of pressurized Axe body spray. I immediately realize this will go poorly, being a pressurized and flammable substance. So I butt in and say that's a bad idea. Both these idiots cut me off and tell me to F off. I played football against them and their rival high school, and we never got along super well. So I said, whatever, F you guys too, and walked across the room where I can see the teacher and their booth, and made myself look busy while watching these clowns. Sure enough, I didn't think they'd actually do it. I see the curtain shut, spark, and boom! Flame shot out the top about 10 feet, and this idiot came bursting out of the booth like a character in a cartoon. Hair back up and slinked soot all over his face, and a big look of shock on his face. Teacher was red-faced and yelled at this moron for a solid 5 minutes and stormed out with both of these guys. Last I heard, they were expelled from that school. I will never forget that smell. Axe and burnt hair. Story 12. The guy was intelligent and was overall a nice kid and a good student when I first met him. He got in with the popular crowd, who were a bunch of degenerate d***s. Watched him slowly fall down that slope from junior high school to high school, where he would just smoke weed all day and skip class, experimenting with harder drugs. He ended up body slamming a kid he was bullying, and the kid snapped his arm in half. Pretty bad compound fracture. Got expelled for that. My mother is a nurse and looked after him a few times. He was in and out of the hospital for drug addiction and alcohol abuse. Not sure if he turned his life around or if he's dead, but I'm hoping he cleaned up his act and has found his peace. Story 13. Baited a very mentally unwell homeless man into the school for the giggles. Man had a knife, and after being refused fries from the school cafeteria, threw a tantrum on the tables. Nobody was hurt, but the kid was expelled for threatening future safety. The school made him take it down, and this was in 2012. But there used to be a video on YouTube of the incident. Story 14. Here's one. A girl got drunk at a house party. Some guy ejaculated on her hair and took photos of it, as well as a few photos of her naked and unconscious. The girl's boyfriend went John Wick on the guy when he emailed the photos. He was sent away for beating the shit out of this SAer who wasn't even given detention, and the girl's photos got sent around for years, and people called her a terrible school. It was a big school, so if you think that's in your school, there's a chance it was. The guy knocked out most of the teeth of that bloke, and there was a long debate about whether it was justified. I reckon it was. This was in Australia, and I have no idea how any of the involved are now. I could ask, but don't want to. They were a couple of years above me. Story 15. For making a fake bomb and slipping it into another kid's backpack. Honestly, looking back on it, it's kind of impressive, because the little box thing had a flashing red light. Kid was in the 4th grade at the time, and the bomb squad came to dismantle it. A few years later, a legit bomb was found near the school he was moved to. Pretty sure he's in jail now. Story 16. In middle school, this girl did nothing but start fights. The last I saw her, she was being taken, alone, on a full-sized school bus to who knows where. As the bus drove off, she squeezed herself halfway out a window, screaming at everyone that she'd beat our asses. Another kid in high school got expelled after bringing brass knuckles to attack some other kid. When confronted by the school officer, he tried to act like the brass knuckles were a decoration for his lanyard. Story 17. This wasn't the official reason, but this kid's dad was piping down the principal's wife, so the faculty basically hazed this kid into getting expelled. They would make jokes about his clothes, hygiene, and home life, which didn't make sense because this kid's family had a lot of money bags. He was a clean kid. The teachers bullying him finally made him crack, and in the middle of a big altercation with the principal in class, the kid yelled, "I'm glad my daddy's f***ing your wife. I'm just pissed he didn't give me a pass at her." The whole class lost it, and the principal cried. Story 18. I went to a really small rural school, 300 students from K through 12 small. I started there in 2nd grade, and we were always a tight-knit class. We had some kids come and go over the years, but the majority of the people I graduated with were also 2nd grade classmates. In junior high, we had a kid come in. We'll call him Danny. He was a total asshole, and he basically fractured our class from one cohesive group into cliques. He and a couple of otherwise good kids basically became the school bullies. It was bad enough that we had so many substitute teachers quit after having our class. Somehow, they were always just careful enough to not cross a line to get into too much trouble. Our senior year, my class planned to take a weekend trip to a semi-local amusement park as our senior sneak trip. During the senior year, Danny and his posse were worse than ever, to the point that many of us were not going to go on the senior trip, despite working our butts off doing car washes and other fundraisers from junior high on, in order to fund the trip. A few weeks before the trip, Danny and one of the others from his clique did something and got expelled. I don't know the full details, but it had something to do with physical violence against our school counselor. It was an overnight change in the dynamics of our class. It was like the cliques disappeared. Even the other Danny followers that were left changed their attitudes and were nice to everyone again. We all went on the trip and had a great time. Graduation came and went. We had a PTA-sponsored overnight graduation party. Then after that was over, we all went and had a party at a nearby lake. I don't know what it was with Danny, but it was like an old cartoon where he was the bad guy that put a town under a spell. And once the superhero kicked his ass, the whole town went back to normal. I wouldn't have believed something like that was possible had I not seen it myself. I don't know what happened to him. Despite the things he did to me and my friends, both directly and indirectly, I wish him well. I hope that was a wake-up call and he turned his life around and made something of it. I think it's more likely he ended up in prison though, but I have no idea. Story 19. Elementary school. Dude was suspended for a good month and came into the class with the vice principal as she carried a few sheets with her. I could only imagine separate work. When they came in, the vice principal asked if he was ready to join us again. He responded by whacking the papers out of her hands and onto the floor, running down the hall. Never saw him again. Middle school. Dude was just a little obnoxious throughout the year, but nothing major from what I saw. Then one day, out of the blue, the whole school was required to change their password, as the guy got a hold of a teacher's password and logged into a computer as them to change his grades. High school. No expulsions, but some of that went down with some folks should have led them to be expelled. Story 20. He got an important science exam that him and his class were given a whole month to complete. When he gave the exam sheets to the teacher, they were all blank, and the only writing on it was "F science." The teacher said they were going to have to suspend him. He tried to start a fist fight with the teacher. He was expelled as soon as possible. Only 2 people in my class saw him after he got expelled, and they both said he looked miserable. Story 21. Came on here to see if anyone mentioned what my friends and I did. Nope, here goes. They took the french fries away from our school cafeteria, so we began loading empty milk cartons full of food and dropping them down stairwells on teachers. The cartons had notes attached, saying the attacks would continue until the fries came back. We were very sneaky and didn't get caught for 6 months. Unfortunately, we were dumb kids who were really into the game Red Faction. Our school colors were red and white, so we took to calling ourselves the White Faction. It wasn't until after we were caught that we considered that some people might think we were racist. I'm lucky we all only got a month suspension and ISS for another month. I have a PhD and a law degree now. Story 22. He was a junior or senior in high school who got sent to Choices, which is basically in-school suspension. He didn't like the school choices officer because he got sent there a lot. So one day, he decided to light the officer's personal truck on fire in the school parking lot, and it kind of exploded. Yeah, he was expelled and sent to jail. He became a meme that spread through the school like wildfire. A pic of his face with the caption, "Don't like your teacher? Just blow their truck up," and shit like that. People in the school got in trouble when the faculty would figure out who was sending the memes. This was back in like 2016. Story 23. A kid in my class got into an argument with a girl at lunch. They were about 11, and the girl started smacking him. He lost his temper, then did a quick flurry of punches and a kick. The girl left crying. The next day at school, out in our local streets, all the kids were having lunch and saw an older kid walking past me towards the kid who hit the girl. Turns out it was her older brother from the high school up the road who came for some payback. The older kid got the younger one into a headlock and started punching him. The younger kid struggles but manages to get out of the headlock and run into a local store. The kid hid in there for a while before I think his parents picked him up. Next thing we knew, rumor had already spread that the older kid got expelled from his high school. Story 24. So this was in 5th grade. This kid was bad. Like, he was involved with drugs. This is pure speculation, but I remember he used to bring small bags with weed. It could have just been oregano, I don't know. Cussed out teachers, like not mumbling under his breath, full-on verbal fights with the teachers. Never did his work. His parents couldn't even control him. The event that did it was him fighting with one of the male teachers after sending him out of the class for talking to one of the students. He refused to leave, and when the teacher tried to call security, the kid started punching him. Like, not soft hitting like what some kids would do if they threw tantrums, but full-blown punches. This kid wasn't very big for a 5th grader, but he could pack a punch. The teacher wasn't very built either. He was maybe 5'10-ish with a slim build, and this is just to my best memory. Anyway, it took like 3 staff and a security guard to pry this kid off the teacher, and by then, all of the kids, including myself, packed into the corner. The kid got expelled. and the teacher quit, I believe. I'm not really sure. We didn't see him for a good 2 months. Mid-school year, I heard from gossip among the teachers a bad kid broke his ribs or something like that. He came back to finish the semester and after that, quit. Though I was already heading to 6th grade, so I'm not sure. My sister, a year younger than me, said she never saw that guy again.